The Chancellor rode into Scotland bearing bad news. There will be no currency union if Scotland votes for independence. And he wasn't the only one being emphatic.
If Scotland walks away from the UK, it walks away from the UK pound.
Scotland will not keep the pound if Scotland chooses independence.
It's not going to happen, and it's very important that everyone has that in mind when they're thinking about how they're going to cast their votes in September.
Well, that's clear then. Good evening. When it comes to writing the history of the referendum on Scottish independence, it might not be the politicians who command most attention, but a Whitehall Mandarin called Sir Nicholas Macpherson. In a highly unusual move, the Treasury Permanent Secretary stepped out into the light today and said categorically that he advises the rest of the UK not to enter a currency union with an independent Scotland. Indeed, he strongly advises against a currency union as currently advocated. Alan Little reports on the bombshell which George Osborne, Ed Balls and Danny Alexander happily dropped.
England and Scotland have shared the pound sterling for 300 years. In 1707, the old Scottish coinage, with its thistles and lions rampant and its Bruces and its Stuarts, was swept away.
And we go back to Robert the Bruce here, you know.
That's a Robert the Bruce coin, a penny.
Yes.
From the 14th century.
Yes.
Might Scotland one day need to bring this back? For George Osborne's audacious assault on the idea of a shared currency post-independence has changed the debate here.
So when the nationalists say the pound is as much ours as the rest of the UK's, are they really saying that an independent Scotland could insist that taxpayers in a nation it had just voted to leave had to continue to back the currency of this new foreign country, had to consider the circumstances of this foreign country when setting their interest rates, stand behind the banks of this foreign country as a lender of last resort, or stand behind its foreign government when it needed public spending support? That is patently absurd.
I'm interested in the next big play.
Would a yes vote force the Westminster parties to reconsider? Of course the nationalists insist. It's obvious.
So it's your belief that despite what they've said today, these three Westminster parties, in the event of a yes vote, would just change their minds?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's political posturing. It's quite clear to me that in the cold light of day when Scotland votes yes, that there will be a currency union. The Scottish Government describes it as logical and desirable. Business for Scotland would describe it as simply sensible.
George Osborne can claim a united Westminster front with support today from both Labour and the Liberal Democrats. There's a high risk in that though. It is easy to antagonise Scotland with perceived diktats from a distant London elite.
The SNP are recent converts to the idea of a sterling zone. Until a few years ago, their policy was to ditch the pound and join the euro. But there is a third way. The countries that are most comparable to Scotland are the Nordic countries just across the North Sea from here. And 3 of the 4 of them, Sweden, Denmark and Norway, have kept their own independent currency. Denmark, for example, pegs the value of its krona to that of the euro, thus ceding some national sovereignty. That doesn't mean Denmark's not really an independent state. Why then has the SNP not grasped this thistle of an independent Scottish pound?
It seems to be that they have no plan B and have never thought of what was bound to happen, and that was a no from whichever government was in Westminster. And I can't explain why someone who's as clever in politics as Alex Salmond didn't understand that you had to have a contingency. And there is no problem in having a separate Scottish currency. I mean, we've got our own banknotes at the moment, so you know why we don't print a separate Scottish currency, I really don't understand.
Scotland abandoned its separate currency 300 years ago, and few now openly advocate its return. George Osborne has told Alex Salmond he needs a plan B. But in telling the Scots bluntly what they can and can't have, he's also taken quite a risk.